favorite scary movie. Don't look so scared.
You know, it's funny that we're getting another Wolfman movie in January, and yet in the mid 90s, there was actually another attempt to try and remake The Wolfman. However, in a bit of a different light than one might expect. It's the movie Wolf, directed by Mike Nichols and starring Jack Nicholson. And joining me to talk about this one, for a Wolfman movie, I had to get someone named Wolfman on to talk about this movie with me. So I've got from the channel Mega Movie Z, the Wolfman. Wolfman, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Yeah, this is one that I watched a few years back because I started this like event on another friend's channel where we would do this thing called Howling for Horror, and it was like a werewolf commentary series that we did. And one of the ones that we were doing was Wolf, and I've never seen it before, so I watched it like for the first time in like 2022, and really, and at the time, I thought it was really underrated. This time watching it, there's some things I saw that don't hold up as well for me, and we'll get to them. But I still think that it's still a solid werewolf movie, and Jack Nicholson is great. And yeah, thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Channel's linked in the description. I did a Friday the 13th ranking with Wolfman and Kyle from and I'm blanking on his channel name. Shoot. It's Kyle's Pop Culture 13, I think is the name. I'll put his
Yeah,
channel linked in the description too, why not? But we did big old Friday the 13th ranking on Friday, September 13th, because I mean you just had to. And that was a lot of fun, so check that out. But as far as Wolf goes, tells the story of a man named Will Randall, played by Nicholson. He is a publisher and is slowly getting up there in years. He is essentially forced out by a younger colleague, played by James Spader. So we're getting Jack Torrance versus Ultron in this. It's pretty cool. And while he's driving on the road one night, him being Will Randall, pronouns, he gets bitten by a wolf and is convinced that he is slowly but surely turning into the creature that bit him. So I have to agree with you, Wolfman, on what you said, in that I think there's good parts to the movie. However, this is not necessarily kill the movie for me. I think the movie being 2 hours and 5 minutes long, I feel like that was a bit too long for me. There's a lot of stretches of people talking in boardrooms, and you get this whole sense of this was just you get the whole Will Randall trying to get his old job back, but James Spader's character blocking him, and then Will Randall starts falling in love with Michelle Pfeiffer's character. You almost forget it's a Wolfman movie at points. And it doesn't kill the movie for me personally, but at a certain point I was just like, is he gonna turn into a wolf at some point?
yeah, no, I agree. I think the pacing of it's very slow, and it's one of those films that as I was rewatching it, I was like, this is like the spooky season. We're all like watching like horror movies and all that stuff during this time. I understand this is by genre, like objectively it is categorized as a horror movie, but I kind of just see it more as like a drama. It's not really like a horror movie to me. Like this, it's not like when you look at some other werewolf movies, like Ginger Snaps has some horror elements to that, most definitely. You have stuff like American Werewolf in London, which definitely has horror elements, and you have all this different kind of stuff. This one just feels more like a drama, but just so happens to have a werewolf creature in it. And I feel as well as I'm watching the whole movie, yeah, I'm like, when's he going to turn into a werewolf? And then whenever he does turn into a werewolf, it's like, still you're looking at your watch, like, when's he going to turn into a werewolf? Because you're like, is that it? Is that the transformation? Is it just sideburns and contacts and like teeth? Is that like all they're going to do? They're not going to give us like a werewolf transformation? Like, this is 94. We've seen amazing werewolf transformations up to this point, and like The Howling and American Werewolf in London. stuff like that. So there's really, I feel at this point in time, there's really no excuse to give us a werewolf movie without a proper werewolf transformation. I feel.
I love that you brought up An American Werewolf in London because that transformation scene still creeps me out to this day. Even though I know it's
Oh yeah.
coming, I know what's going to happen, it does not stop me from just going, just like my eyes just lighting up and going, oh my God. And like just Stan Winston absolutely just crushing it on the effects front there. And or no, wait, Rick Baker, excuse me. I had a brain fart there for American Werewolf in London. But far as Wolf goes, there's a lot of talent here. Like we talked about Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer and James Spader. Christopher Plummer's also in the movie briefly. The score is by Ennio Morricone of the Dollars trilogy, among other things. He's done quite a few movies outside of like Western stuff. You wouldn't think of it, but it's true. And there's a lot of like really good elements here. It just sounds weird. It almost feels ashamed, like it's a Wolfman movie. Like it's almost, I don't want to say looking down on the material, but that's like the only way that I can describe it necessarily.
Yeah. And even when you bring up like other movies that have done werewolf stuff, and like I want to give the credit where credit's due with this movie, with like you talked about with the score. Ennio Morricone might be my favorite composer of all time. He composed my favorite horror movie of all time, which is The Thing. Like he's done a lot of excellent music in the past, and then you have the performances all here are excellent. Jack Nicholson is really great. Michelle Pfeiffer is really awesome in this. Everyone does a great job. Like it's shot well, it's made well, directed, like the direction is really good. Like everything about it, there's really not like, I just think the only issues I really have are the pacing and the fact that it just takes so much time to get to the werewolf. And then once you do get to the werewolf, it's still not satisfying enough. Like with something like Ginger Snaps, yeah, that's a slow transformation because you see how she like only gets like a nose and then maybe she gets a tail later on in another scene. Then she gets all this different stuff. But that was purposeful because that's that was a metaphor for puberty. And then eventually you got the full on monster out at the end, and it was the full on werewolf design at the very end. So it was like a slow build up, but then gave you that satisfaction. And I felt like this just never brought that for me.
It's a nice looking movie too. I almost forgot to bring that up. The movie actually
Oh,
looks really nice and it's still in that pocket of the early to mid 90s and I mean throughout the 90s where it's heavy reliance on practical effects. And when CGI is used, it's used sparingly. It's a toolkit. It's a tool in the toolkit, not the entire toolkit. So I do appreciate that, and I think that's something that's going to be sorely lacking in the Wolfman movie we're going to be getting in January. And I'm not killing it in my head. I'm not saying it's going to be bad outright without seeing it, but I'm just saying that it's probably going to be the case where there's going to be a lot of CG. That's just the sign of the times. But I do appreciate Jack Nicholson quite a bit here. Really, my favorite scene in the movie is the finale, in which he's stuck behind the bars of that zoo. James Spader's character has been bitten by the wolf himself. He's becoming a wolf. And so it's what they've been building towards throughout the movie of like like the young buck trying to take out the old lion. And so there's a lot going
yeah.
on there through the prism of this Wolfman story. But again, it almost feels like an excuse to have like this weird corporate takeover kind of thing. And like I said, it just feels back burner kind of stuff. And I don't mean to chew my food twice on that, but it just there could have been more Wolfman stuff. Like if you're gonna be a Wolfman movie, like be one. I guess that's my point.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, yeah, technically it's not titled Wolfman, it is titled Wolf, but it's like trying to, you can tell it's inspired off of the original Wolfman like movie. You can definitely see where the inspirations lie as trying to be like that. And I do agree. I think the setup to the final act isn't there, but I think the final act is what saves it with the fight at the end and everything, and just the way that um, James Spader and Jack Nicholson, their rivalry throughout, because especially up to that point, Jack Nicholson, he fires him from the job, and so like there's that tension there that is built up, and so it makes sense as to why they end up uh, going at each other the way they do. I just like you said, I wish that we got a lot more because like a lot of the scenes throughout this movie are just off screen, like whenever the robbers come up to him in the tunnel and they're like, "Hey man, give us some money." He's all like just standing there looking like a human with sideburns. He then takes the person and bites him off screen, and you're like, "Oh, this just he's biting his shadow. This is okay." And then whenever you get him at the zoo, like that's shortly interrupted because of David Schwimmer and the other cop who decide to come in there and try to arrest him, and they just escapes. And there's like scenes like that where it's like it feels like they could have added more to those scenes just to rev them up and be more exciting. You know it's kind of sad when like your most exciting scene in this film is him killing a deer, probably. Like that's probably the most exciting werewolf scene in this whole movie. And so yeah, it was a little lackluster for me in that department.
I agree. However, it is very well made, like we did touch on. There
Yeah.
is these are all pros doing a very good job. It feels like it's like a Wolfman movie almost by accident. However, on my scale, I'm going to give this a good rating. I can't knock the quality in terms of the technical side of things. It's very well done. But I feel like if you were to have given this to, like, say, Wes Craven or John Carpenter or something like that, I think that's something they could have sunk their teeth into. I mean, Wes Craven had a killer
No
1990s.
no pun intended. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no pun intended, right. But I mean, Craven, like, he's got New Nightmare a year after this. He's got Scream. I mean, we all know what that is. Did Vampire in Brooklyn, which is very weird. That's coming up later on in the month. So it's not like Craven must have just been busy. Who knows? But Wolf is an interesting case. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I think we can both agree, well made, but just weird that it's a Wolfman movie when there's like not a ton of Wolfman stuff going on, if that's fair to say.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree that it's a very well made movie, just kind of lacking in the werewolf department. And I love slow burns, but this gets a little bit too slow at times for me. And I just think if you trimmed it down, you would have had like and added more of the werewolf stuff and made a proper transformation, then you would have had like a perfect werewolf movie. And and I understand too that Wes Craven, unfortunately, he's going to have cursed on his repertoire when it comes to werewolf movies because that one is he wanted to do a werewolf movie, but that was so much that got so much interference from the studio. But one thing I do want to point out about Wolf is that it came out during the 90s, and 90s had a lot of films that weren't that great. Like we started, like you had your 70s, you had your 80s, and then the 90s it started to peter out. And that's why people say, Scream was what saved the slasher genre and everything, because the 90s was just kind of starting to, you had a few hits here and there, like Wes Craven's New Nightmare and other ones, but for the most part, it was just kind of, you'd get like duds or very cheesy, like goofy, enjoyable movies, but they were goofy and cheesy. So, but when you compare this to other 90s films, like 90s horror films, this is actually very strong when compared to this. Like, this is a very strong movie because it works as a drama. It doesn't work as much as a horror film, but it works as a drama. You can watch it and uh, and still get entertainment out of it, still be like interested in the characters, interested in the story, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would give it a positive rating as well, because even though I have those issues, I don't want to like take away from the technical aspects of what made this film what it is, and I think it's still really special for that.
I agree. Well, I pass it off to all of you. What did you all think of Wolf? Let us know in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. Wolfman, thank you so much for joining me on talking about talking about Wolf. Your channel's linked in the description, like I said. What do you got coming up?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on my YouTube channel, Mega Movies, and where I will be reviewing, hopefully for you guys, by like tomorrow or Tuesday. I'll finally get around to reviewing Terrifier 3 for y'all. And there's some other kind of horror themed reviews I have planned for the October month, so y'all can stay on the lookout for that. Last night I reviewed Saturday Night on the channel, so you guys can I reviewed it on Saturday night, so you guys can check that out. And yeah, a lot of exciting content coming my way. So be sure you like this video and subscribe.
Thank you very much, and definitely subscribe to Wolfman's channel. As far as Scary Mania goes, we're going to be continuing on in the year 1994 and taking a look at one of those Wes Craven movies, like I mentioned, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So stay tuned for tomorrow.